Hello and welcome to episode 177 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I am your Caped Crusader, Drogyn1701. With me is Greendragoon, also known as Kite Man.
Do I fly like a kite, or am I like about as useful as a kite?
Yes. And also with us is Markhawkman, also known as the Condiment King.
Believe it or not, I actually once did a character sheet for Condiment King as part of a superhero computer game. Well, okay, not really but it's like a fan idea for something to add to the game, even though no one ever added any of those things.
That is also a special power.
We have the third part of our Rogues Gallery, DuncanIdaho, also known as Zebraman 2.
Hey, Electric Boogaloo.
We don't talk about Zero Man 1.
What happened to Zebraman 1? I need to know.
Well, apparently it is Batman Day. I just saw that was trending on Twitter, so decided to do a Batman theme, and I quick Googled obscure Batman villains.
I think I may have done one more one-up on the obscurity front by tweeting out a reference to Bat Thumb.
I did see that earlier. Yeah.
It's a Batman parody done with thumb puppets and computer spliced eyes and mouths. It's by the same guy who did Kung Pao Enter the Fist. So it's kind of like that. And
which is my most hated movie ever. I know you like it, but it's
yeah. I think you would like Frank and Thumb.
I don't hate a lot of movies, but that's one I hate. I'm generally somebody who likes things, but
chicken go cluck, cow go moo.
Yeah.
Talking like an animal. How about you? I can quote that movie all day. It's the only movie I can quote. It's shameful. It's literally
doing so will get you booted from the show. But anyway, obviously, this is the Foundry Roundtable.
Is it?
Hopefully you guys do not hear the thunder in the background, because I'm having a little bit of a storm here. We do have some news because there's some new assets in the Foundry, namely ships. We got the new flight deck carriers from the ally species. So we got the Suliban Silic class carrier. I forget the name of the Tellarite one, but we got the Tellarite carrier and what was the other one? Orion
Blackguard. The Orion's called a Blackguard.
Yeah.
It was seen in Star Trek Enterprise as... Well, actually, all three of them were.
Yeah, they're all canon.
Yep.
But it was the ship that one Orion pirate that Archer ran into was flying.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by Cryptic by their choice here, because these weren't ships I was really aware of. I mean, I saw the whole thing of Enterprise, but I wouldn't have really thought of these ships as things that they could bring into the game.
Well, the Blackguard is one that I'd picked out as something that I would have liked to have seen.
Like the Suliban one. I mean, that was an interesting choice, because it's like you don't really notice it when you're watching.
It's shown on a view screen like once.
Yeah.
The Silic is actually a ship that, for most of the time, it was in the episode. It was cloaked, so you couldn't see it.
Well, yeah.
Speaking of cloaking,
it did appear on screen for briefly.
Well,
but
they were able to get through the cloaking device.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we're able to. I mean, because we can see you.
Well, see, that's the funny thing, though, is that when Archer finally figured out how to detect the thing, it showed up on the view screen looking an awful lot like what my ship looks like now.
That is true now that I remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Tellarite ship actually didn't start life as a Tellarite ship. It was originally the Xindi Arboreal ship, and they just reused the model, the computer model.
I think they repainted it or something.
Yeah, it was a different color.
Believe me, they did the same thing back when they were using physical models.
Yeah.
This is also true.
Also with actors.
Can't really blame them for that.
That didn't happen as much in TOS, but in TOS they also didn't have as many Alien of the Week that actually had spaceships.
They only had, 5 or 6 actual ship models throughout the whole run of TOS?
Yeah, I think the Botany Bay got reused once or twice, at least if you're talking the original effects.
They used.
Well, there were a lot of
D7s.
Alien of the Week from TOS where they didn't ever see ships from them.
They were just like glowing lights, or
even if they had ships, they didn't really show the ship.
Well, like for one example, let that be your last battlefield. The 2 Alien of the Week, they arrive at this Enterprise in ships, but you never see them. One of them has his ship stay cloaked the entire episode. The other one, his ship apparently is somehow self-destructed silently while it was approaching Enterprise, and he beamed to the Enterprise before it finished disintegrating.
Of course, several of the ships that I don't think you ever really see in the original series, they designed some ships for the remastered version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which then actually were put in stone.
Like for example, Gorn. In the original episode, they fudge the Gorn ship by stating that it's too far away from the Enterprise to be able to look at the ship on the ship's main view screen.
What did he say?
Well, it might be the nice thing about Discovery here is that its budget is quite large, so it won't have that sort of limitation.
Also, since it's CGI ships and stuff. Hey.
So, speaking of Discovery, we obviously the premiere is tomorrow.
Yay!
Tomorrow evening. They're going to broadcast the first episode on actual CBS channel, or broadcast CBS channel, and after that, it's all streaming. And in celebration of that the premiere is this weekend, the Stowe devs surprised us with Discovery uniforms for free.
Yeah, that was really surprising.
Yeah, how cool was that?
They're actually very odd because of the fact that it's the first uniform in the game I can think of where part of the uniform actually uses 2 different color channels.
Some of the veteran ones do that.
I think maybe the Lucari armor might do that too.
Yeah, and the Klingon armor, it does that quite a lot. Like the Bortescue option has the sort of the metal bits that have very similar color pattern options.
There is some debate apparently over which color really gets you the closest to what we're seeing in Discovery in the show.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever go for the canon pattern because I just don't know yet. Like I just don't have a good idea for how to have a.
It looks good with a lot of different color schemes.
I'm wearing it right now, but.
Yeah.
It's
we can't
just
see it quite right now, but
no, not right now.
We'll be able to see it later.
It's a great uniform. It's just that because I haven't watched Discovery, we don't have any Discovery ships. It's not like I have a Discovery crew yet. So I know someone put out on Twitter that they already remap one of their crews. So it's like I'm just not there yet.
I did.
Want to know what the first thing I thought of when I saw the Discovery uniforms was? They remind me of the uniform that Spaceman Spiff wears.
I mean, Calvin and Hobbes?
Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that a little bit. Actually, you know what I just discovered the other day is the color is almost identical to what NASA astronauts wear as like a jumpsuit.
That's because it's mirroring Enterprise, which was modeled after the NASA jumpsuits.
Yeah.
So I think it's a carry forward from Enterprise is what it is.
Well,
Yeah.
wait. The thing you should talk about is like NASA jumpsuits.
Yeah.
That's actually like an Air Force flight suit. It's not really something unique to NASA.
There are
I was
no
just looking
original
at
ideas.
I was just looking at pictures of astronauts when I saw that. So,
But yeah, that's because Enterprise was a callback to those flight suits.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Snowball brings up a good point in the chat room. Agents of Yesterday boss, the 23rd century boss, are a bit limited in some of their costume options, and one of the things is that they cannot use the new Discovery comm badges. Or not, they're not actually comm badges because they use flip-out communicators, but the badges.
Yeah.
I noticed that, so I had to get rid of some 23rd century buffs off of that crew. Your Agents of Yesterday captain will be just fine though.
Okay, but it's just the bridge officers.
It's just the bridge officers.
Okay.
I noticed that earlier with a different thing because they can't use a lot of the kit pieces.
Someone pointed out something to me that's rather hilarious and extremely useful, actually, is that apparently the boots, when the boots were added to the game, they were added as an option for every member of every species in every faction.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes they can pop up like that, but it is odd for the Discovery ones because they do have Starfleet insignia. They do buckles. So it's like, hey, I got new boots. It's like, oh, wait a minute. It makes no sense to use these on anyone else.
Well, then again,
to be fair, though, you can
like
actually color them so that the buckles don't actually look all that
you can
different.
Still see them.
No. See, here it is. Here it is. Okay, so you got like a really old school Klingon character who killed a Federation officer and took his boots as a trophy.
So Nobby Knob style. Now that'd be pretty good. A Federation Romulan would also make sense.
Because the Romulan Republic is really poor and they could not afford to make their own boots.
Or maybe it's just like, hey, I like Starfleet. They won't let me wear the badge, but hey, there's no regulation against wearing these boots.
or a pirate character who stole the boots.
Makes me wonder if there's like a Starfleet surplus store somewhere.
Well, to be honest, when you have a civilization with replicators, it's it just kind of.
We do know that at least in the TNG era, the uniforms are replicated.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Discovery era.
In the Discovery era, who knows? So unfortunately, these uniforms are not yet in the Foundry. Maybe we can poke.
Gently poke. Gently
into getting that done for us. She seemed to indicate there was some reason that she couldn't put the Kelvin era ones in, but there shouldn't be any issue with these.
Yeah. The one thing I'll add is that these do look particularly good with the duelist options for armor pieces from the Reputation set. So if we could get both, it would be absolutely fantastic, and I would totally remap the Starfleet Security Uniform Guide.
There's always new stuff.
Well,
one thing I noticed about them that was actually very surprising to me is just how good the Tellarite belt looks on them.
Mm.
Yeah, didn't think.
They don't have a belt naturally, so
yeah,
there could be another belt options that would look good though.
Yeah, I've used a few.
The Tellarite belt is this smooth, kind of shiny material that fits at just the right spot for you to have a belt on that uniform if it was supposed to have a belt, and it actually almost perfectly matches the way that the piping has that shimmer to it.
Yeah. So
another thing that Johnny Snowball is noting is that we haven't really seen it on the promos or the trailers yet, but there is a medical version of the uniform that was shown off in the prop displays that they did at the conventions, which is white. The color palette that the uniform uses doesn't really let you do a true white. So you're either stuck with sort of a very, very light gray, or maybe, go with one of the ones that's on the blue level.
I would suggest maybe on the new sort of for the last few options, like from the duelist and it's starting with the duelists. We've got this new really vibrant color pattern. There's a white up there that I would investigate. So it's atypical,
reminds me of something
it might look better.
Rather interesting about this one is that we can't actually change the coloring of the what's the word for it? That part of the uniform that has the little Star Trek chevrons on it, on the pants. You can change the color of the chevrons. You can change the color of the pants, but the panel that the chevrons are covering is apparently it goes with the same color as the pants always, unlike the top.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
Well, I think we can look forward to more Discovery items for sure.
A hammer blow has been struck.
You know, one of the things that I was looking at today, or actually a couple of days ago, was a shot from one of the promos that was like a huge fleet battle between the Federation and the Klingons. And there's all kinds of new ships in there.
The one thing I noticed about that screen...
You've seen this one that I'm talking about.
I've seen that screen. The thing is that comparing the nearest ship with the others in the fleet was facing the wrong way. They were facing away from Discovery. Only one ship was pointing towards.
You mean the Klingon fleet?
Yeah, the Klingon fleet. Okay. All those Klingon, unless one ship is facing backwards, everything else is facing forwards, or one ship is facing forwards, everything else is facing backwards. There might be some more complexity to that scene. It might not be a full on-out one versus all those.
It certainly might not be.
So it might not be.
We don't really know the context of this scene yet.
Yeah. So
but it certainly contained a lot of several different Klingon ships for sure.
And this is just
many different bed ships.
And this is just the one house we've seen so far, and it's already been indicated that there will be other Klingon houses with different styles. So I'm really looking forward to all the Klingon stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that
There's
reminds me.
There's going to be a lot of different designs.
That Klingon costume that they put it in there, that is a very interesting outfit.
The torchbearer.
Well, the one that's like looks almost like ceremonial armor.
Does it
From
have
what we understand, it is sort of ceremonial and also functional as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like gold-plated metal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the aesthetic for these Klingons. So yeah, we'll see what's up with that tomorrow.
We're sort of waiting to see all the context of what all this stuff is.
Yeah, and I will be picking up CBS All Access for at least the week-long trial, so I will see the first episode. So I wasn't planning on sticking around for the whole series just to kind of keep costs down. But you can basically look forward to next week. A lot more talk about Discovery.
I set mine up here today, so I'm all ready to go for tomorrow night. I think some of us in the Starbase UGC Discord channel are going to do a little watch party since it's going live essentially at the same time for everybody. So
fun.
Should be fun. Let's see. Season 14 testing is going on Tribble right now. Some of the stuff we know is obviously a new fleet. Holding, which has activities in it to help build up the holding, and then also has a couple of queues with it as well. One ground, one space.
Mm-hmm.
The ground one looks kind of interesting because it's like an assault defense sort of.
I think that would be nice is if we could get the Draenor colony holding map and the Foundry. I mean,
it's a beautiful map.
Yeah.
I'm not holding my breath because, let's face it, we don't have the dilithium mine map either. But still, it would be nice to have.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say about the Season 14 stuff is that currently there is quite a lot of concern about the grind on this one. And that is, of course, with any content and testing, is something that Cryptic's going to be evaluating. But I would still kind of expect this to be a little bit more of intensive fleet holding. To encourage active fleet participation. I think what Cryptics might be trying to do here is to get something that brings fleets together a lot more. So I would sort of recommend for players approaching this fleet holding and earn a fleet. Try to get the fleet just in anticipation for this and actually when it goes live. Try to just get your fleet moving a little bit because I've noticed with mine they're all pretty slowed down. They've been in zombie mode for a while. So hopefully this spurs things up. If not, I mean, it's just, I think it's something to shake things up. So I would say for players, kind of be aware of that going in, that you might want to prod your fleet a little bit more to try to encourage more active participation and more active.
Well, from what I've heard, the part of it that's currently the most, shall we say, interesting in terms of how much effort it takes is collecting the provisions, because you don't just buy them with fleet credits.
Yeah, you earn them by doing stuff on the fleet map, right?
Yeah, and that's something that, one or two players aren't going to be able to do themselves. You'll need a bunch of people contributing to that. And that's where I think Cryptic's trying to give fleets a little bit of a poke. So there might be a little bit of pain, but I think it's going to be good pain.
Well, also, I'm not 100% sure that the guys at Cryptic had actually made a final decision on what numbers they want to use for that.
Oh, definitely not, because that's why it's on Tribble. I mean, Tribble is when
Primar says that Boricus has indicated some major changes are incoming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they always iterate these things.
Yeah, I do kind of
like
wonder if the devs had actually gone to the time and effort of doing all of the math required to figure out how long it would take people to collect all of the provisions needed to get this holding to tier 5.
Almost undoubtedly.
I'm sure they must.
It's kind of their job.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm pretty sure they got spreadsheets for this.
Yeah, I don't think they wing it to that degree.
No, I think a lot.
I'm sure they got number crunchers. But sometimes their initial idea of we wanted to take this much and that sort of thing, they have to look at it in testing and see what the players get it and see, okay, maybe that's not actually that practical.
Yeah.
So we gotta.
It's also good to remember that the Stowe community is a very varied group, and so what may be quick for one fleet is very long for another fleet, and that's a pretty wide spectrum.
Yeah, there are actually some players who utterly loathe the idea of doing mini games. Doesn't matter why, they just hate them.
But yeah, I think in general though, those I'm looking forward to those, because it's almost like we're getting a fall event.
I mean, it's not new mini games. It's the radiation scan one, the dilithium mining one, and the omega particle one.
I'm just happy when they introduce a new map and there's stuff to do on it.
Yeah, because that's what I've been missing out of the fleet holdings from the very beginning. It's just I want to do stuff here, but
it's like I want to spend time here.
Yeah, I mean, I used to do the officer of the watch just to actually do something.
Well, I mean, for example, the dilithium mine. I once spent an hour or so wandering around the map just because I was curious what all of the different nooks and crannies of the map had in them. And I even managed to figure out how to, shall we say, look behind the curtain, as it were.
Did you find a tiny man?
We that's what we expect from you, Mark, is to find all the holes in the maps.
Well, actually, this one, what it was is I managed to climb up onto something that you weren't really supposed to, so I could look out at the area around the playable area of the map. Which, well, let's just say that area is boring because there really isn't much of anything out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't have anticipated Cryptic to put
a
whole lot of stuff this is just for us. The players can't get here, but we know.
It would really be funny if you got to one of those places and
you
got to one of those places and looked out to a place where you shouldn't be able to look, and it just says, if you can read this, stop messing with our stuff.
We see you there.
Give them the accolade rule breaker.
But one thing that when you get these activities that sort of require an active fleet to complete is, if you're a player, you have to just really kind of sit down and decide, okay, do I really want the rewards that come with this? Mm-hmm. Do I really want to do this actively? And if that's the case, and you really do want this stuff, then you need to do what it takes to accomplish it, which is either get your fleet in gear or join a big fleet that is in gear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the people I've heard loudest complain about this is someone who had, in the past, had boasted of how he was able to do the main fleet starbase single-handedly.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily going to work for all future fleet holdings. Although I will say, if players are looking for an active fleet, well, let's plug Starbase UGC first.
We're sort of active.
It's generously called active.
We do have a good armada.
Yeah.
We do have a good armada. So.
Okay. And then Shields of Tomorrow also started up a fleet. And they
we could use some active players on the Klingon side. Let me say that. We don't have an armada over there. The House of UGC.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, keep in mind there are some active choices in the community. Also, I mean, the default's priority 1, but Shields of Tomorrow is an interesting group to hang around with, and Starbase UGC 2.
I just noticed something really weird about my ship. The long oval piece of the Borg engine attachment disappeared when I cloaked. I can see the other piece that's attached to the end, but the other one disappeared. Oh well.
So let's see. One last bit of news. We put out a new issue of Jayce's Navy Interstellar, our little lore magazine. This week, we did one on the Cation and Farasin escorts, and as well as Cation and Farasin cultural happenings.
And I suspect I know who contributed to that.
Well, the main mover behind all of we call ourselves the Team 2, as Thomas Gadd is Team 1, and does the official ones, and we do ours, kind of in his style a little bit. And the main mover behind that is Sir Boulevard, who is very big into Farasins, of course.
I think he should just get the official title at this point, official Cation Farasin lore master.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what he has in his missions is what I go for in my headcanon. Mostly because Cryptic hasn't really made any attempt to fill in that.
Yeah, there's nothing that contradicts it. So,
I did get to help just ever so slightly with it because I think there's a picture of the heads of state for the Cations and the Farasins, and so I got to go play the Cation head of state because I had a character who fits.
Yeah, we have one bowing to the other. So
yeah.
But these are a lot of fun. He does the writing and I do the design work, and we have various contributors on some of the artwork and that sort of thing. And the design work is a lot of fun. It's something I enjoy doing. So we will be doing more. This is our 3rd issue, and then I did the little special article for the USS Infinity Foundry Challenge.
Are we planning anything similar for 26C?
I hadn't. Maybe I will. I don't know. Something to do during downtime if it's a lengthy downtime. That brings us to the next thing that didn't have a note on there. Season 14 will be launching on October 3rd. We may be able to expect some downtime with that. Really have no idea how long it might last.
Which is about a week and a half from now on a Tuesday.
So just kind of make sure that your Foundry projects are in a state where they can sustain some pause in your creative cycle.
Yeah.
So it's probably not advisable.
Downtime's a great time to either take a little break or do some writing.
Yeah. I think it's just the idea is don't publish your mission now. Wait a few weeks.
If you got a new mission, it's not all that good to publish it now. Just do it after downtime in case anything breaks.
Yeah, but also you're going to lose time on the news in the new tab too, and that's how newly published missions tend to get found frequently.
So let's see, Dragoon, tell us about this map that we're in.
So this week, in kind of what I've been working on, I've made some really good strides on my refugee map, which I've been posting screenshots of and talking about for a month now. And so this is actually, go ahead and switch over here. This is actually the space map where this city is located. And you guys were kind of asking me about this. This is what I call the ice field. And what it actually uses is there are no like placed nebula assets on this map. This is all a weather effect that is actually built into the map. And so it had like originally a few asteroids here, and then I've gone through and like added in a bunch of my own to kind of make it denser and feel more expansive. So I'm actually taking advantage of this map to kind of get this blue weather effect. And then I think one of the backdrops may have like a bit of a fog on it. That kind of helps sell it so that things feel like they're in the gas versus something that just it's kind of flimsy.
It does give you nice engine trails.
Yeah.
For one thing.
I've been really liking exploring this through. Just wanted to note, I've got the stream's buffering on my end, so I'm just wondering if it's kind of down for anyone else.
Says we're fine.
Like it's doing all right.
Okay.
From my perspective here.
Okay, yeah, I'm just gonna refresh that.
Right there.
I just wanted to make sure because making sure we're still live. Okay, we're good.
I think
All
we're
right,
good.
so this is the location of the Refugee City. It's actually located on a small asteroid. It's kind of one of those things where I saw this asset in the Foundry, and it kind of inspired building of this city as a kind of an artificial
cool
dome.
With those domes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, question for you: the planet, is that baked into the map or not?
No, that is placed. There are no planets baked into this map. Just the
Okay.
asteroid.
Just the asteroid.
Yeah, it's kind of a squarish asteroid that takes up part of it.
And we are going to go into the Foundry as soon as we're done here and take a closer look at this maps because mainly because Dragoon forgot the actual name of the base map.
Yeah. Well, it's been a while since I originally built this map, so.
Sin Hack, I think in our chat room, is asking if there was a graphics update. There was a lighting update not too long ago, which I think was generally net positive for the game.
Oh, yeah.
It caused a few problems in the Foundry, but nothing too crazy.
We still don't have space lighting back, but ground maps tend to look a lot better with a lot of the ambient lighting effects.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to make a few changes to how you light spaces. You just don't use the Omni lights anymore. You use the ESD recessed lights and a few other ones. But generally, I mean, it's been working out really well for ground maps.
I will say the lighting not working on space maps has kind of forced me to think more about how to make my maps visually interesting without relying on lighting.
Yeah, you got to do a lot more with backdrops. And also just be careful because there are some backdrop combinations which can take the muted lighting and just turn it black. So it takes a little bit more iteration with all that.
Yay, and the teeny bug didn't hit us.
Yay!
It did not.
All right, so this is the spawn point, beam down point for the city.
Yep.
I kind of.
This is an interesting visual effect because it kind of sort of looks like there's like a yawning abyss below us.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted this.
There's a depth of field effect going on.
Yeah, I do really like that, but I do really like the sort of the shanty island in the middle down there.
Yeah, and that was actually
that added a lot of texture to this because otherwise it's just going to be just the massive refugee buildings, but then that adds a lot more flavor.
So it's a case of the large buildings had this like one little like standoff building. And so when I stacked them up to make the walls of the side, this was kind of a result. And so I was like, well, why don't I work with that?
Yeah.
I've done that myself with a few things.
Yeah, I did play through this a little bit earlier, and this is a great example of what you can do when you think vertically about a map.
Yeah, and that's been one of the things that I've been kind of challenging myself to do more and more is to get away from just the planar maps.
Yeah.
Now,
although
one thing
I will
have to do is make liberal use of invisible walls.
Yes, and so everything should be enclosed.
I did test that, and I was
Mark will find it if it isn't.
Yeah.
I'm
Unfortunately,
working
this
on that
map.
as we speak.
I wanted this map because it has the field above. I think this is the old Hobus map.
Yeah.
But the downside
I
is
was going to comment on that one because I can't think of anything else where you see that in the sky.
Yeah,
but then you got
no
the
longer,
planet.
That mission is no longer in game.
Yeah.
Sadly.
And you've got the well, I mean, you covered up the base map completely, so that's good. Or it basically you can't tell.
It's got like rocky moon walls around the edge and a rocky floor.
Yeah, so it's just that stuff doesn't show up at all. So
yeah.
It's only the skybox that players might recognize, but you did use the Andoria backdrop, which I thought was a really nice touch because you got the planet.
It gives you that planet, which the planet matches the one in the space map, which is always great.
Yeah, it's great ambiance.
Actually, I think the orientation is wrong, but whatever.
It is, but I can't do a vertical ring.
In space there's no up and down, so it's all relative.
Yeah. Although I will say I am wearing the Discovery uniform. Well, a variant. Well, what I hope to one day become, if we get the parts for it, new Starfleet security uniform. Which is
funny. Both of us are wearing our because we were kind of getting into a argument about who gets to use the Discovery uniform.
Non-Discovery uniforms.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great uniform.
Guess who doesn't get to use the Discovery uniform? Romulans.
So I apologize in advance if the NPCs aren't great. I literally was like throwing them down today before I was exporting them.
They seemed pretty fine. I mean, like they added a lot of ambiance. I would like to see like optional dialogue, just here and there. But
I'm not that far.
Made it to that stage yet.
I did notice a minor glitch with the frame around the purple goop. The gray pieces you built the frame out of don't seem to line up quite right.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, once you guys get over here, I do want to give a shout out to this. There's kind of like my favorite architectural detail on this map.
Hang on, I think everybody.
You're still way back there.
Yeah. All right, I'll head towards you. So I think this section I'm running through now is what I originally built or prototyped when I was just trying to figure out the style for this map.
Yeah, I also
like this whole street here where you've used the damaged and destroyed buildings to make it look like it's a really poverty-stricken area.
I really like these. I don't know why. I just really like them.
Yeah,
that's the Klingon pillars, but it's just they're sort of built in sequence where that just like it feels like a real architectural space. You get this little bit of overhang. It's a little bit dingy. It fits really well.
Yeah, and that was like, a solution to a problem because my building was overhanging. So I put a platform up there for it to sit on. And then I had this platform. I was like, well, that looks stupid. So I had it in the pillars to kind of.
It feels like it's all sort of haphazard, like it was all built, a little bit at a time, and without any planning.
Yeah, and that's very much what I'm going for. Yeah. I think I mentioned this before. This is loosely inspired by the Walloon Walled City, which is was also an architectural marvel built with absolutely no planning whatsoever.
Yeah, that was, and it's just this does feel really, really nice.
All right, so this is the kind of the central plaza. This is where the government building, or what they have, their version of a government is. It's not complete anarchy here. Can't remember who was with it's either like Sir Boulevard or Primar who said this looks like a space mosque.
Maybe
kind of, but I like the security.
It certainly looks a little bit more official and.
Not dirty.
The surrounding buildings, yeah.
I really like this. Security checkpoint.
Yeah.
That is good.
There's a story reason why there's a security checkpoint.
It really fits with the government building.
because it needs security. Okay, is it checking for infection by the Eidolon?
It is.
Aha!
Aha!
I love the thing that it's just this big, massive, these massive emitters just to be a scanner. Like they're like working with not the greatest tech.
Yeah, that fits really well. I also do like the doors and gateways that we'll go through over on this side.
Yeah,
and it really fits, and it doesn't take many assets to actually pull that off. It's just the colony lamp with the tarp, the archway, and then those two pieces, and boom, you got a really cool looking doorway.
Sure which one you're by.
I'm going to just start shooting lightning at it.
Oh, okay, so you're by the open one. Yeah, and it's also a solution because I had areas where the street goes nowhere, and I needed to block off. And originally I just threw up a wall, and it's like, that's not very good.
Look at this thing and tell me if it looks strange to you.
There's probably going to be a black... Oh, right here. There's going to be a black texture there. So
yeah,
be something to note because we talked about that previously.
Oh, is that the DirectX?
Oh, certain objects just seem to be missing a texture or two.
Yeah, the normals are flipped on it, and unfortunately, it's one of those things that's built into the buildings around us. So it's not like I can just swap out that crate.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think it really. For me, it doesn't really pop as an issue. So for me running around, I certainly wouldn't say I wouldn't knock off a star for that.
This right here feels like a perfect opportunity for a jumping puzzle.
You might be able to get up there, but
I tried. I failed.
I would put a data pad with optional dialogue up there. Reward the player for exploring.
I mean, you can get up there, but I've sealed everything with invisible walls, so you won't be able to get too far. Well, you can probably start to see my where my.
What's the asset limit at right now?
Pretty close to max on both.
I would expect.
I have a few assets to work with, but
I would say it's like the down here, ceiling detail. That's the one thing on this map. This ceiling felt a little blank. I mean, it's concrete, but a little buttressing or some like suspended wires just to sort of break that up would make this section look really good.
Like the netting assets.
Yeah, something like that, just to break up this ceiling. It might only take like 2 assets if used strategically, just to kind of go across and break that up. So it's even like the generic archways, or generic ship archways, something like that.
All right, so got up here. I'm gonna show everybody something real quick, just to give you an idea, because I know we've talked about it before in the past. The idea of never build what they'll never see. Get over here. You can see. If I get over this side, there's like this is raised because you can't see that part, and so I didn't bother to build anything down there. And if we ever got outside of the bounds of the city, you could see that it just becomes like single buildings and whatnot, just floating in the air, just to give that detail of buildings in the distance.
Cool.
Okay, so at this point, we're kind of starting to get into the lower levels of the city.
Yeah, and this was the ceiling I was talking about. Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot.
It would be something I'd have to be able to do it with just 1 or 2 assets. If I could do that, then I might do something.
And that's what I was thinking, just like a couple of little buttresses just to break up that ceiling. Or even just like one at the end. So you don't have the concrete edge, you've got another kind of edge, and makes it look like there's something, supporting it.
All right, so we're getting towards the end of the map.
I like how there's this, path that you take, and it goes through all these different levels of the cities, and you can do all sorts of, have all kinds of different objectives all throughout the map as you go.
Yeah.
From where we started all the way down here.
I found a spot where you can see something that kind of messes up the illusion, but you can't actually go there because there's an invisible wall. But the invisible wall is literally the only thing that stops you.
Yeah, you found the access way to the drainage tunnel.
Yeah.
which is where the
Yeah. Well,
it's
you
a
see
good
where
flip
I'm
up
standing
back
right now?
don't know.
there.
You're not
No.
near us.
Oh well, Drogyn ran down here.
Oh, you're back there.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you
Okay.
can move your camera around and see past the wall there.
Okay.
Well, you don't even need to manually pan the camera. You can just have your person stand right here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a couple of tweaks here and there, but
Yeah,
overall,
like
I mean,
I think most
throw
players
another
are probably
stack
not
of
gonna
crates on
venture
the other
back
side
there.
of the wall.
all right. So yeah, the last part of the map you're in is, and this is where the end of the map more or less is the drainage
Way
tunnel.
down to the sewers.
Because it's just not one of my
You
city
like-
maps if it
you like
doesn't end in the
sewers, don't you?
sewers.
Yeah,
Just reminds me of the.
that's how you
Well,
can look out and see it there.
are we gonna have a moment here where it's like there's gonna be gun confrontation at this scene of like I've been wrongfully accused of a crime. You're coming
I
in
don't
with
care.
me. No!
There might be a chase
I
scene
didn't
that
kill
ends
my
here.
wife.
But
Hey, I just realized where we are. I
So-
saw this waterfall when we were standing at the top at the beam
Yeah.
Yeah.
so yeah, those lights up there, that's the beam in point.
point.
That is an awesome touch to it. Just make sure, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but I'm going to anyway, because that's what people do when they say I don't have to tell you this. Is make sure we spend a lot of time on this map. There's make sure there's lots of objectives and lots of things to do because
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
you want
it's,
to show it off. You want to spend time on this map.
yeah,
'cause
and
it's
it's a
so
decent
awesome.
sized map, so you'll be spending some time here. I mean,
Optional
even
dialogue.
I mean, what it took us like a good 5 or so minutes to run through it, and we didn't really stop much for anything.
Yeah, we didn't really stop for it. I always go back to in the very, very early days of the Foundry, an author named Saber Druid built this fantastic rendition of the Klingon courtroom from Star Trek VI. I mean, it was just spot on. And the mission he made for it, you had like one objective and a couple of lines of dialogue there, and that was it.
Basically, you go there, get yelled at by the judge, and then you leave.
I mean, it was barely 2 panels of dialogue.
Ooh.
And so my advice for him after I said this is like, this map is really cool. We got to spend some time here. So, I mean, if you go through the trouble of building something that is really good and really elaborate, make sure your mission spends a lot of time there.
Yeah,
Okay,
Well, this
I
is
just
definitely-
thought of one thing.
the showcase
My
map
take-
of Act 1.
It might be a good idea to add a few more bits of stuff along the walls here, because the pipe on the ceiling is a great touch, but the rest of it feels a little bland.
Yeah, you might not have the assets remaining
Yeah, I
to
don't.
be able to do anything with
But
it.
I think that kind of works with this because it is just a tunnel.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just a
And
it's just a big pipe.
Yeah, I guess the only thing you could do is like dripping effects, maybe something along the walls, but I think that would eat up assets pretty quickly.
And
not to mention
slime
The
monster.
walls are curved, so
Yeah, I
nothing
mean,
really
like the only
conforms well
thing-
to them.
Well, yeah, I was thinking of just like having what looks like sort of little walkways on the side, but I like the plants here a little bit better because it sort of makes it feel a little bit more dingy.
Or I don't know, piles of trash or something.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of piles of trash.
Do we
Some-
have
some
piles
the-
of trash?
Some of the
Oh.
debris assets.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. On the stairs because I don't want the tribbles to drown. Triple pile right here.
I think we're well outside the normal area you find tribbles.
I'm
This is,
putting
on the
tribbles
far
in
side.
I'm putting tribbles in Centaurus A. I'm making statements about what those things are. Because
Technically, this is the other side of the galaxy.
I'm just saying that maybe another civilization or tribbles are older than you think, and another civilization was transporting them around. They've been inhabiting the galaxy for a very, very long
Plus,
time.
maybe tribbles are super intelligent god aliens.
I would actually just say tribbles are tribbles, but they just keep spreading through the cultural contact.
Like a plague.
Yeah, the Iconians moved them around a little bit. Preservers moved them around a little bit. Because who knows, they might predate the Preservers. So Everywhere the preservers went, you got tribbles.
All right, Dragoon. Why don't you go into the Foundry and show us how these maps look from the other side?
Okay.
Johnny Snowball says, redress a mob as Epos and call them rats.
I think the repos are short enough they'd probably drown. All you see was little antennas running around.
The werewolves might
that
be
would,
good.
That would be fun.
Epos are too evil to drown. Come on, you should know that.
They're aquatic.
Well, actually, now that I think about
Maybe
it,
they're
you do actually
amphibians.
see them running around in the river on Malrihan.
That is true.
Oh, God. Now the jumping... I got used to the jumping height on that map, below G field. Now it feels like, I can't jump. Indication.
Which I think that is baked into the map, if I recall correctly, because I used that map for my Starbase 1.
It works for the asteroid, too, because it doesn't necessarily feel out of place.
No. But I think, Dragoon, that that is one of those maps that people are going to praise you for forever in the reviews.
I've definitely spent enough time on it. This is like the third time I tried to build this map.
All the more impressive because those colony buildings on the 2D map, the assets don't show up very well. You can see like the awnings and a couple other bits of them, but...
Well, I can tell you from practical experience that being able to see where the awnings are located, once you've gotten a lot of experience with working with those props, is actually enough to tell you enough about their locations for you to be able to actually work with them properly.
All right, so I've got the ice field map loaded up.
Yeah.
See our little colony there.
So is it called Icefield?
The base map name is Bomari Space.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, I thought that looked familiar.
Yeah, I think you in the game you fly through the field in here and basically scan some communication satellites.
Oh yeah,
trace the signal.
It's trace signal ones.
So
yeah,
a good thing to note is you can kind of see through all of my placed assets that there is a baked-in asteroid field in here in the middle. It's not very big, and most of the rest of the map is empty. The weather effect for the blue nebula is if you picture a square around, extending a little ways outside the asteroid field, you get the basically the volume for the weather effect, but it does not extend for the entire map. So I think right now I've got the spawn point on the very edge of the field. So if I was to backtrack, I would pretty quickly fly out of the volume for that. So it's something good to know. But I mean, as long as you kind of stick close to don't get too far away from the baked-in asteroid field, you can use it, and it's cool because it gives us a different option from the normally we only have the red nebula effect as a weather effect. All right, so got the refugee colony here, and it is nice and thoroughly complex. This has taken me quite a long time. This is, I know I've been going on and on about it for a month or so now on the roundtable. So yeah, it is kind of divided up into several layers. So I've got the upper area here, which is at around the 100 mark, and then you got this I call the government district, which is kind of around the 70 meter mark, and then that scales down. And by the time you get down to this lower area down here, you're down, I think, about the 45 meter mark. And then once you get into the drainage sewer, you get down to like about 35 meters. So yeah, I mean that's a good like 65-meter drop by the time you get through all of it. And yes, the colony buildings are really hard to work with.
You put so many of them on this map. I mean, you just look at this. It's just it looks like you put in almost 100 of them. Or at least that's what it looks like, anyway.
Well,
let's see what the
building limit is 64.
60. Did you reach
Okay,
it?
but
yes, it's maxed out. But it's not just the colony buildings; it's also the destroyed.
The fed ones.
Yeah, the destroyed fed ones, which I kind of ended up using as a base.
That's one thing I'd noticed.
I originally tried to build this map with just the colony buildings, and I ended up not liking it. They didn't quite feel dynamic enough, and again, they were a pain to work with. And so actually having the fed buildings as kind of a base, and then just using the colony buildings as kind of extensions on those, really kind of helped anchor it for me. And so that kind of just made things a little bit more easier to deal with, because even if I couldn't perfectly see where I had placed a colony building, I at least could see the fed building underneath. And of course, since there's a low gravity volume baked into this map, I went crazy with the invisible walls. So you might be able to get on top of something, you will not be getting outside of anything.
Yeah, you have invisible walls.
And you kind of need it because you don't really want somebody wandering off in that particular map.
And yeah, you can see once you gets outside of the city, it like drops. The complexity drops off or a lot. And so yeah, you can see here. I mean, I've only got a few assets out here, and it's basically just enough to kind of sell you on the that there's building over here. So I got a bunch of the largest colony buildings I could find, kind of just eyeballed them and tested them until I got them into a position where most of the gaps were filled. And beyond that, if you can't see it, I don't need to build it.
I do like, though, how you have quite a number of buildings that are sort of off in the distance. And I don't know what it is about either this map or the backdrop you used. They do a little bit of depth of field, so they go out of focus.
Yeah, I'm using the Andoria ground, and I think the depth of field is kind of a baked-in effect of that.
Yep. Because I've used that
when
recently.
they're far away from you.
So I think that's most everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm still picking the NPCs and stuff.
I have to say, I like the way you use the winter boots, or not winter, but con boots. They just look kind of like perfect for refugee stuff because they have like the whole like fur thingy on them.
Yeah, I think this species I use the con boots on. Kind of make them look like they're skin, like sheepskin boots or something like that. That's the only. Everybody else has got. He doesn't have any shoes. So yeah, then the male version of the same species. This is my deer species.
Mm-hmm. Very much approve of the costume work. Although you've got special options.
I do have special options. Most of them aren't too complex.
Get the tails. I mean, I totally would have done the Ibby with tails if I had that option. But nope.
Oh, by special options, you mean the kitchen tails on things that aren't?
Yeah. So it's from the old import costume feature bug that unlocked a bunch of options for people like Greendragoon and Johnny Snowball.
Yeah, I think Drogyn grabbed one at the time too. I'm not sure if he's.
I might have one somewhere. I'm not sure where it is.
I may have something like that because I know one of my old missions, I used the costume import thing to make ground costumes that looked like spaceships. And I think I still have some of those around somewhere.
All right, so that's what Dragoon's been working on. How about you, Duncan? What have you been working on?
I've been working on my 26th century anthology mission.
I think you got some screenshots to show off. Is that right?
Yeah. So that's included both some costume work, some writing, and some level building. So I've been working on my Enterprise J custom interior. I'm not sure I've got the hallways quite right, but it's sort of like it's good enough for now. And then once we get the official coordinates out, I can tweak things later. But this is basically just sort of like going off of what we were Greendragoon worked on in the previous round tab. And then just sort of working on that, just taking it from there. So as far as the maps go, I'm building sort of this interior deck. It's got a little bit of a... This is part of a previous Twitter conversation, too. You were looking for... I think it was Greendragoon was looking for a word for something that you would call a ready room, but we already have something called a ready room. So it's like the field room or the prep deck or something like that.
Yeah, I was looking basically for a place people would go to like get changed and get rid of their gear after an away mission. Like a locker room of some kind.
Yeah, I built a series of those to sort of like for all the teams who are getting ready to go out on an assignment. So that's part of the map. And then the other part is this reception area. So the reception area is sort of like a reception / conference room / sort of like digital display sort of briefing area. There's a bunch of functions worked into one space. So I might use it for future missions if I get around to building more. Or I could, put out the coordinates for people to get build this thing and use it for various purposes as well. So this is sort of just where the player's going to get started, going to get their info for what they're going to be doing for this first mission of mine in the 26th century. So this is once we've arrived in Centaurus A Galaxy, kind of the idea is like, hey, we're setting out teams, go out there. So this is kind of writing itself as one of the first assignments the player goes on. Which is a lot of fun because I can joke around on the first point of all the other teams that are being sent out there. So I can work with some ideas for kind of like thinking about who else might be going to explore. So I've got a team that's a Romulan, a Klingon, and a Nanov. A couple of Octani, and Oskin, and a Ferengi. And doing stuff like that of like, hey, these are all the possible teams I could have paired you up with until I finally show the player who they're actually going to be with for this mission.
So Starfarer Theta suggests staging room.
Staging room would work pretty well.
Yeah.
I've also got a room of zeros. That's one team that's going to be going out there. So it's the 3 Zeronius Rexes plus a pink Iconian who is I've dubbed Iconian Zeronius Rex. So just a lot of visual gags, some just stuff, background detail. The SSF team is there, and they're not going to be going with you because the character who you're going to be assigned to, your entire team, all these diverse multicultural teams going out there, the player is just going to get Pym from Trident. It's just Pym. So that'll be pretty funny. For those who haven't played that one, it's basically if you've played Halo, think Grunt's Mercenary. And that's getting you along the lines in that direction. But just a miscellaneous comedy character, kind of like a little bit of a Han Solo mixed with Jar Jar Binks, but in a good way. That's not really selling it well, but I mean,
no,
it's
that doesn't really, yeah.
A funny Han, like, oh no, I got
confidence.
it. It's Han Solo plus R2-D2. Combine those two and make him a little green alien. So anyway. That's going to be my first primary character, and then as the mission moves on, I added a few more characters to this one, and that's kind of the next part I was working on with this one. Because I was having the idea that this would be a mission very much like my first, so the player would be introduced right away to like a 5-person team, and I was challenging myself, okay, make a mission about that. And then I realized that's not the mission I want to make right now. Because if I was basically going to make another first mission, it would be with the few lessons I've had over the couple years I've been doing with the Foundry, and also just be a different style from what I've done before. So this is going to be a very player-centric episode. A lot deeper dialogue options. Very much more Mass Effect-y than what I've been doing, which is a little bit more reserved as far as the player is concerned. So there's not a whole lot going on with them. They're just kind of on this, not quite on the sidelines, but they're not the principal character factor through the mission. So the mission is ultimately not about the player, but about the story and the events going on around them. Here, I'm going to try to change that. So we got a few aliens here. So we've got Pym, who is the green guy with the bald. In the 26th century, he's going a little bit bald, but he's with the Romulan Republic, and he's going to be joining you up as a smuggler, or not a smuggler, but a salvager / first contact specialist, to kind of augment your team with someone that you don't necessarily have as a bridge officer. And then I've got a couple of aliens that you will eventually team up with through the mission. One is called Incurious. He's the yellow guy. He's a member of the Sorgot Empire, one of the new factions you'll be introduced to. And then the other character is Sabatu, who is a member of the Primacy, which is another faction. So you'll be investigating some dealings going on with them, solving some problems, getting into some conflicts. And I've started writing this one, and it's actually taking some really good shape. So these are... with the exception of Pym, these are pretty new characters for what I've been making. The only comparison I can make is that Sabatu is a little bit like Ith from Eons, one of my AI missions. But definitely different personality, different character. It's kind of like Jigoro plus Ith plus Escarosa, a little bit with how her overall character arc is going to go. So she's an ambassador on her first assignment to the Sorgot Empire. And then one of the Incurious is a cleric of the Sorgot Empire, who's going to be basically facilitating your dealings on the planet. He'll be going to, and they've got some stuff going on. So anyway, it was just setting up what will finally be what I actually make for 26th century, because I've been working on these character ideas for a long time, and then this is finally it. So Bloodleaf WoW asked for Sabatu, what forehead did I use? Actually, good question. So let me think. It was, I don't know the name off the top of my head, but the skull type is, it's a ridged forehead. I used one of the more restrained forehead options, but what you actually see is actually a textured spot pattern. So there's I think it's spot 03, and then I just raised the texture up and made it match the skin texture. So it's not actually taking advantage of the color, but just the bump mapping. So anyway, yeah, that's been what I've been working on: finalizing characters, getting some writing together, and finally committing to this is what I'm going to be writing. This should be good.
Cool.
So the whole time I've been watching Duncan run laps around ESD.
Yep. I just don't have anything to do right now in game, so I'm just running around. This is also, I did set up this is my setup for 26th century character too.
Make an actual DuncanIdaho.
This is like my very first character, so I named him DuncanIdaho way back in the day. Just because it's like, pick a screen name, DuncanIdaho. Okay, so I didn't really think about it, so the character name is completely different. And that's kind of what I do. Like my actual title, character profile name is never something that actually corresponds to the character, because I know I always change ideas. So this one is Marcus Graves, and he's the Starfleet security character I killed off in SSF Season 1, who I was thinking about bringing him back for the actual missions, as a character you'd be interacting with. But I figured it's what? It'd be kind of taking away from the player, and there's some good stuff there, but he's just going to be in the background as far as everyone else is concerned. And he's just going to be, just the perspective I use to play through people's missions. So he's been Agents of Yesterday into the 26th century.
Just to satisfy my curiosity, how are you guys doing on your collaborative project? You and Starfire Theta and Paul Sutherland.
So Starfire Theta's got 2 missions done. You're pretty much done. I've got mine in. it's structurally complete, but I'm still working on dialogue, and that's been a little bit tough for me recently because I haven't been in a good place to do major writing yet. But and Starfire and Sutherland got really his customary sort of his core building style got nuked during a previous update because the Romulan walls are now invisible.
Ew.
And he builds maps out of Romulan walls. And he was going to build a map on Romulus. So he got knocked back. He hasn't been doing a lot of Foundry stuff recently. He was kind of getting back into it for a little while, but I think he's taking a break now. We're still hoping to get it done by end of 2018 or 2017. But we probably are going to do 26th century missions, and then after that, it's going to be, for me, Transcendence Part 4. Cool. And I've got maps on that one. Oh god, it's these are some of my best ground maps in terms of the visuals, and I can't show anything about them. And it's killing me. And Starfire Theta has done some absolutely fantastic work, and I love these missions. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really hoping he does stuff for 26th century, because I think right now he's in a really good spot for his building, his writing, to really make an awesome mission for the series.
All right. Mark, have you been doing much in the Foundry lately?
I haven't really had a whole lot of time to work on stuff in Foundry, although I have tinkered with a few things related to some missions, but I haven't actually get anything major accomplished. I did, however, verify that the Silic in the Foundry has just as few customization options as it does in the main game.
Well, we'd all love to get more customization options.
Oh, yeah.
Like if we could somehow have the option to put all the shield visuals on our custom NPC ships.
Oh yes, adding visuals to the Foundry would be amazing, simply because of the fact that there are so many different ways you can recolor ships with them.
Oh yeah, there's just so many new options for our faction.
Very much so. I can tell you what I've been doing a little bit is I decided to make some small, I call them base missions for the 26th century. I'm going to make a bunch of them. They're going to be like no more than 5 maps each, so limiting how much time I need to spend on them. The first one's going to be kind of interesting. It's the idea is it's right after the fleet arrives in the Centaurus galaxy, and they are finding things that are unusual. So the first one is the fleet is heading towards an area of space that's very unstable. It's not like anything they've seen before. The idea is they're going to have to send some ships in to find a safe route through, and of course the player is one of those ships. So you have to venture into this unstable area of space, and you find mysterious things.
Temporal anomalies?
I'm not going to say just yet.
Oh. I was just hoping it's like, okay, someone else make a mission with Ross.
No, I'm not going to utilize Ross on this one. I'm going to utilize Mara of House Paris, who's the helmsman of the Durgath. I figured, send the navigators from these ships along with the ships that are going to try and map out this unstable area of space, so that when we find a safe route, they can go back and guide the fleet through.
Yeah, it almost kind of sounds like one of the early episodes of Voyager, where they found that singularity and ultimately discovered that it was they were trying to rescue a temporal echo of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So having a Paris involved in that one, I think, would be quite appropriate.
Well, it won't quite be like that, but
yeah, but it's kind of like we're kind of in a similar situation of almost just sort of like we've got our pilot, and now we're going to be making a set of episodes to really kind of flesh things out. So,
I wanted there to be a good library of episodes, sort of regardless of how many people want to participate in the challenge aspect, and then make other missions for it. I wanted there to be a good library of episodes.
Yeah, and I've only got the one planned, and then I'll be working on a few other things for a little while. But I mean, there's enough here. I mean, I've got this that I could probably make 2 or 3 missions at the very least, because the next one I've been thinking about is a Klingon crime noir set on the Durgath.
That could be fun.
And that would be a Starfleet security one.
So I basically went through and I sort of made 1-sentence plots for 10 potential episodes. So let's see here. And then I went through and found a whole bunch of Iron Maiden songs to use for the titles.
Yeah, sounds like some good research.
Actually, I started with the titles, and then I was like, and then sort of mapped out some plots there. Okay, so I'll read them out to you because, I don't really care about spoilers that much. So you board, first one I told you about. And then next one would be, let's see, board an alien space station to rescue your crew who may know the whereabouts of Earth. Next one would be search for an alien traveler who has information that you need. The idea would be you maybe talk to or you find a civilization, you go down and talk to people who may know where this person is. See, one of them is discover new technology that could aid the fleet in its search. Another one would be make first contact with advanced aliens. And obviously that can go many different ways.
Yeah, that's basically what my whole thing is. But it's sort of make first contact with aliens, and then discover there's basically the Dune universe there. So to make first contact with aliens and more aliens, and by the end of this, we're gonna have it's gonna be difficult to fill out the encyclopedia entries. Let's just say.
It's funny. This all kind of reminds me of the first half of the third season of Enterprise. So whether like in the Expanse looking for the Xindi, but early on they have no idea where they are. They really don't know anything about them. And just that kind of the whole is like, it's always like hints and clues and maybe this will lead us in the right direction. But it doesn't really move forward until they get to that midway point.
I didn't have that in mind, but it is that exactly. Let's see, I've got a few more. Let's see, I've got one that says, visit a planet with a deadly secret deep beneath the ocean. I just, wanted to use the water assets. Got one that says, let's see, find a crashed alien spaceship that ends up affecting your crew's minds. Maybe it takes them over, maybe it drives them insane.
Jagoro might be a good one to have along with that. She's kind of crazy now.
Let's see. Discover an ancient city that should have remained lost. that could have some interesting things too.
I kind of want that one to be a comedy mission. Like it should remain lost because it's just annoying.
I could turn some of these into comedy missions. Who knows?
What if you made it a person? Person that should have remained lost.
I also did. I looked through like old sci-fi art and found some interesting things to go with some of these missions because I figured it's like, okay, if I do like one custom build per mission, that also sort of limits the time I have to spend on them. So I'm tempering my ambition with these missions and making sure that I can do them quickly.
Yeah, and I would say is like once you get like one of the it might be good to sort of like build. If you're planning on using the custom interiors, just sort of build them all in one project and then just duplicate that a bunch of times.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So I'm building this one first. I'm going to put a lot of the costumes in it, even if I don't use them, and certain of the maps as well, even if I may not use them right now.
Yeah, because like at the very least, it's just good stuff to throw in the background.
Because one of them that I would like to use for this first mission is your Enterprise J conference room.
Yeah.
Just to provide a little bit of continuity, and you need it for the mission briefing and that sort of thing. So, and I've been experimenting a lot with different like weather effects and nebula effects, just to create an area of space that looks very strange, and the different weather effects in combination with different backdrops. And I think I got something that looks pretty cool. But always with the idea of we are in a new galaxy. We have no idea what's here. Our long-range sensors don't work very well, is I think one of the conceits that we're going to need to use.
Oh yeah.
Because that necessitates sending ships out to scout things, and then they will have adventures.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. I'm not going to show any screenshots just yet, although I have shown off a nifty-looking, I think, alien that I made with very, very exaggerated features.
Oh, yeah.
Take all the arms and leg sliders and move them all the way to the left and just go nuts with it because, we're in another galaxy.
You have basically made Ham Sandwich's long-lost cousin. Because that's what killed him.
Except it's sort of the opposite of everything that Ham Sandwich is. Ham Sandwich is like small and has a flat head, and this one is really tall and has like a really pointy head. But that's the kind of stuff you can use, or the kind of stuff you can do.
I'm certainly going quite a bit more alien with some of my designs. Like Incurious from the last screenshot, the explanation for what those aliens are is going to be interesting. But it's just a great opportunity for new designs, trying to find some of the most interesting ways of using aliens' various parts. So yeah, I think it's a really great creative, like AEI was for me, a really great way of just just allowing yourself to be creative with Star Trek Online.
Mm-hmm. So let's see, you have a bit of a mini mission review.
Yep. So I played. I'm gonna have to look up the title real quick. It's by Helix Fungus. It's in the new tab right now. It's his. I think it might be his latest mission. It's called The Son of Izar with the TOS tag right in front of it, and I will say that it might be a little bit more of a divisive mission. In its core concept, in the execution, it's pretty good. But in the core concept, it is basically the execution of Axanar. So it is using Axanar as a creative guide to make that story in the Foundry, with appropriate modifications to make it distinct. But it very much follows in with the ideas, the feeling of that mission, and a lot of the characters in their general detail from what we saw in the Prelude video. So not everyone is going to be on board with that idea. And there were a couple of TOS issues, or terms of service issues, that I encountered with this one. There was a question of one character's, did they go far enough to distinguish that from the actor? But apart from that, I think that's, as far as any sort of discussion goes, like that goes. So it's one of those ones you kind of have to keep in mind, is that you may not be, wherever you stand with the Axanar thing, it sort of is good to separate, because this is, for the Foundry, kind of a really good execution of what we can do with this, what we can do with the tool, of we can make stories that, didn't exist in, actual canon fact, but we can extrapolate. And this used something else as a creative guide for that extrapolation, but it does fill in a nice blank. And it does, work pretty well as a TOS mission. So the basic premise is that it's during the Klingon War, TOS period, and the Federation's getting hurt by the new D7s. So the Constitution class is in the making. It's basically Axanar. And we've got to go on a mission to hold the Klingons off long enough to get the Constitution class out. So in the general gist, I don't want to go into full detail on this one, because it is just a nice mission to just play through, seeing, detail to detail. Is that the mission progresses as that we team up with Garth of Izar, Captain Garth, and essentially go through a series of encounters to try to just hold the Klingons off, to try to get, the plans for the D7 out, and have a lot of these very tactical engagements in the TOS era. So there's a lot of staging involved for making certain encounters more harrowing than they are an objective fact. Like at one point you get ambushed by a D7, and the writing is such that it's a really tough fight, and we got to go into the, we got to get really close to this planet, get it, almost in the atmosphere, and then we'll be able to just sort of like disrupt it enough that we'll be able to take it out. Of course, it's just a battlecruiser entity, and pretty easy to blow up if you have a good build, but it does stage that scene up rather well. So ultimately,
that's kind of a good idea of, how to make things a little bit more cinematic.
Yeah, and it's really good staging for that. I mean, it's sort of that feel of like we're going through combat encounters in Star Trek Online, but they don't feel typical. That's where I was really impressed with this mission, is that we go through typical things, like, we got to fight a D7, but Helix Fungus really approached them in different ways. And these were not events that were actually depicted in the Prelude to Axanar. It was sort of what you would imagine from what that would have ultimately be, if that ever got produced as a fan film.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but no script was ever released publicly for Axanar.
Not as far as I know.
So really, I mean, as much as this is based off of the concept of Axanar, this in of itself has to be its own creation.
Which is an event that was mentioned in TOS, right? When you meet Garth Vizar, they talk about it.
It was mentioned, but it was like, it's all the details, like the D7 Constitution class in the making, when it was, and then some of the accessory characters are inspired by Axanar, but it's not Axanar. So I did do a little checking on that one, just to be sure, because some of the characters were really close. One of the miscellaneous captains was like, wait a minute. It's like, oh, okay, so technically different character, but it's definitely using Prelude to Axanar as the inspiration, and just sort of in the Foundry giving that a proper continuation. And I mean, as the mission goes, I would say that through the events that you're sort of running through this, one thing they kind of strike out at me is that it's basically a character story about Garth, and he is driving the plot almost 100%. There are a couple of other characters he interacts with, and it's usually just a lot of shouting about how impossible a situation is and what we need to do, and really sort of ratcheting up the stakes. And as far as that goes, I mean, I don't think Garth was that compelling a character in this. Like, it's a really great this mission is great for technical execution, but I'm not sure it works as well with how the story and the characters are presented, with them being so heavy on driving the plot forward, and the player character is very much an attachment. It almost feels like we're very much a junior officer. We don't have agency, and we're just listening to other people solve problems. So even with player dialogue options, it doesn't feel like on this one that the player is as involved as they need to be with a Foundry mission. Because it doesn't feel like my character's having any input. It doesn't feel like I'm really doing anything. It's Crazy Garth has a plan. We go through the plan. People are talk about the plan, and then we just go along with it. So there's a lot of long dialogue where you're just hitting continue, 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 continue. So, I mean, it sort of takes the dramatic staging a little bit too far, where it works in some scenes, like taking out the D7 for the first time. But in other scenes where you're just sort of like setting up the grand battle, it's like, well, I'd like to have an opinion too. And that's something I really tend to watch out for in my SSF missions, because I have the same crap of, I've got a lot of characters, the mission revolves around them, but I want the player to still be involved. I think this mission goes a little too far in making it about the characters to the exclusion of the player, and that we're just, basically a camera. So
are these little fountain waterfall things baked into the map?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, like when you line up the base of a building so it completely covers.
Oh, are you still in the Foundry?
No.
Yeah. We're on Earth Space Dock right now.
Yeah, we can't really see what you're looking at.
Yeah, it's just like a general thing about the sort of thing you were building.
Are we talking about my map, my refugee map?
Yeah.
Oh, pretty much nothing you see should be baked in. So all the waterfalls should be placed.
Yeah, because those are the new Romulus ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the Son of Izar. It's a great way, a great illustration of how you can vary up basic encounters and make them a lot more dramatic. But I do think that Helix Fungus maybe went a little bit too far in ratcheting up the drama in certain situations, and especially when it comes to the Garth's role through the mission, is that it feels like it's a little bit too much about him through all the events, even though it is kind of a character arc on him. It doesn't feel like the balance is quite right. And as far as that goes too, is that he didn't really have a good introduction, so all of a sudden you basically just get kind of a free spinning wacky character, like not wacky, but a very roguish type Starfleet captain. Kind of like right off the bat, and he's already involving in crazy schemes. So you don't get that much of a lead up on him. So anyway, I would recommend the mission, especially to TOS characters, since it's definitely set in that era. Although I would just say, like, when you're approaching it, make sure you kind of keep a few things in mind. A, you're going to be basically a camera through the mission, and then B, it is an Axanar mission. So some people may have strong opinions about that, but I'd say it is a very good intellectual exercise in what we can do with the Foundry. Very much separate from.
Did they actually use the Axanar script as inspiration, or did they?
As we said, it's not in that script, as far as we know, wasn't released. And
I think plot details were put out there.
And I would say the one caution I would have for the author on this one: don't have Spock in this mission. That was my EULA concern on this one. He's got a young Spock, and it's okay. He did do a lot. Like, he's got Sarek in here too. And there's a plot point where the Vulcan, like, following along with the creative inspiration behind Axanar, is that the Vulcans are involved. They're thinking about leaving the Federation because it's about, they're upset about the Klingon War lasting so long. Them in particular felt like one of those, not the way to do a cameo. It felt like they're there because Axanar had actually it's even weird for Sarek. Because he had Saval. Axanar had Saval. So Sarek's basically playing that role. Even though it's completely, Sarek, completely different. But using canon characters in this case did not feel good. Because there was no particular reason why these characters in particular added to the narrative versus anyone else. Even though Sarek's an ambassador, but it could have just been as well been any other Vulcan counselor. And then bringing their son along to have this, quick line, that felt pretty forced. And it did, for me, it sort of raised a flag of like, hold on. Is this it's this good with EULA? And I would just
as long as they don't look like they're actors. I mean, if it's a little kid.
The thing is, young Spock was out, like, it was one of those ones where we've seen several iterations of young Spock. That there are, there's the young Spock from Inner Darkness, and then there's also the young Spock from the animated series. And at a certain level, it's just like, he wasn't necessary at all for the mission. His character, it was a random cameo. And it was it's one of those things where it's just like, you could argue for this character being too much like, I mean, the structural details were different, but it's one of those things where I just really don't like it when an author brings in a canon character and
for no reason whatsoever.
And there's the question of it's a question of degrees whether or not they're similar. And I think Pax and Photonomy Pax and the 100th and Photonomy are sort of the textbook examples of how you do this well, like how you actually bring in a canon character and make it mean something. And I would just say for authors, unless you really are it's vital that your story involves this character, don't include them, because I think it limits players' own creativity, because these characters could have just as well been characters of the author's own imagination. And I think they could have had a lot more free license to make them more involved through the mission and to do a lot more with them. And to avoid any EULA considerations of making these look specifically like the actors. Because Odo, we've got a lot more leeway. And holographic characters, we've got a lot more leeway. But if it's a standard human actor, I would just say don't do it. Because you're going to have to push the character, like what happened in Sarek in this mission. They pushed the character so far away from it that it was jarring. That, oh, wait, this is Sarek? Doesn't it look completely different in ethnicity? And that's how far you need to go to make sure there's no argument you can make that this looks like the canon character. And the problem there is that why like at that point, why not make him a new character? So I mean, it's one thing in the Foundry. It's for me, it's a very strong recommendation. Just keep to the spirit of the EULA. Just make your own stuff up.
Well, the core whole thing with that is treating the actor's likeness as I guess you could say, tangible asset almost.
Yeah, because it is. It's specifically
if it looks like the actor, then it's no go because it has to be, But
and you never
on the
know.
flip side, that means that while you can theoretically use the character, if you can't make it look like the actor, it's kind of
yeah. And to use a character,
only use it if you really need that character.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's going to be jarring. It's going to be questionable, and you definitely don't want to cause a problem, because that's also the thing too. Is that if there's ever going to be this is why we can't have nice things. This is that issue.
Yeah.
So
because if we get sued because of if Cryptic gets sued because of something that we do in the Foundry, well, that's going to be bad news for the Foundry.
Yeah. So this is definitely something that authors take seriously. Question if you have if you check this by other authors, check it by Cryptic. Do due diligence on these type of things, because I've been actually seeing that quite a lot recently with some 1-star missions, using full-on casts of TOS and Voyager, and it's like, okay, gotta report it because it's not acceptable. And even when authors are trying to do it right, it's still like we're still having this kind of conversation.
So maybe we move the conversation to what are ways you can do this well. I I had an idea which I have not put into practice, of course. So since we got the Zenkethi in, do we have Zenkethi mobs in the Foundry yet?
We've got the ground mobs, but not any character model or any costumes.
Okay.
Well, we have space.
I'm sure we do. If she put in ground mobs, I'm sure she put in space.
I'm absolutely positive we have ground mobs, because I fought them recently in a certain mission, and one of those 1-star missions, and I had to report it for Eula, but yeah, the author just decided, hey, we're gonna fight monsters now, and they use Zenkethi.
Okay, so here was the idea. You do another one of these where you depict a event that's been mentioned in canon but never seen, which is the original Zenkethi War that Captain Sisko fought in when he was a younger officer. So I was like, okay, we can depict a battle from that, and a fun part of it could be like, okay, so during the battle, your ship gets disabled, and you're fighting the Zenkethi boarding parties or something like that, and a panel explodes, and out steps a guy in a EV suit. Because the face shields are opaque, so you can't see who's in it. And dialogue with the NPC says, "I'm Lieutenant Sisko, and I'm here to rescue you."
And that's one way to do it. Another way,
or like the old Klingon War mission where you are talking to Spock, but you can't see Spock.
Yeah.
Although
I've done that before too.
Yeah. One thing too is that you could also just throw his name in as a reference. Like your ship is under attack, another ship shows up, it's a captain, and he just yells at someone off screen just like something like, "Damn it, Sisko, work on that subspace gain," or something like that. Where
that wouldn't work in this case, because the captain would be a canon character as well. It'd be Captain Layton.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I thought, maybe a rescue party is sent over to help you out, and they're wearing EV suits for some reason, and so that gets around the face issue.
Yeah, and that's
you could still have Lieutenant Sisko in your mission.
I didn't say that's
maybe say it's like a hull breach or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a question of
maybe Layton's in the sick bay, and I was gonna say maybe it's first officer, but isn't the first officer also canon? Isn't that the that one girl?
Yeah, you just keep going down the line.
Yes, that's like half of Sisko's crew was in that episode.
Well, see, that's why I would set this particular scene on your own ship.
Yeah.
Well,
and one thing you could do for
you guys remember how they worked in Kirk into the yesterday's war thing, right?
Yeah, he's on the ground, and you help him.
Yeah, he's face down on the ground. Isn't our face down busted at the moment, though?
Our animation is.
Yeah.
Because you do face down and they fall down.
So here's another way of doing canon characters that I have used. I did these Holo History missions over on the Klingon side, where you depicted 3 famous battles that the original 3 Klingons fought in, and I framed them as holo programs. So your character is playing Captain Core, and since I can't change your player's appearance, there's no way I could depict that canon character's face.
Yeah. And then if you wanted to do Kang and Koloth, I mean, one fun way would actually just be make your bridge officers playing those characters.
Yeah. I think I did it where you never interact with them on the view screen. I think the screen just depicts ships or something like that. Yeah. Or orders are relayed to you via a bridge officer.
Mm-hmm.
Captain Kang just called. He says to go here.
Yeah. One thing I was considering for a while was making an Enterprise B mission, and one iteration of that I was thinking about was actually making it about Harriman. And you would basically go to, you would get trapped in you would hit a subspace anomaly. It's a subspace artifact similar to what the Iconians were using to hide various servitor races. And you would find that your ship hasn't been the first one to encounter it. The Enterprise B basically got lodged in there. So the idea for the ground map was basically to make wreckage from the Enterprise B strewn about this very much sort of like floating platform, just sky castle type thing. And you would be following along with the logs of John Harriman as you're going along. And I would just use one of the EV suits. And the idea was that he might have actually, I was thinking about maybe he was actually, reconfigured into another species, and that would be the villain through the mission. So
I just thought of something really amusing. Remember Vash?
Yeah.
Who could
Card's
forget?
girlfriend?
Well, see, what I just thought of is writing an archaeology themed mission where you're running around, following clues you get from Vash's journals, but you never actually see Vash because all you're doing is reading notebooks that she left behind.
And you can just use one of the props.
That's a good way to do it, yeah.
And for me, I was going to be using the EV suit, but if that wasn't an option, I would have just done the just one of the crate group, one of the prop groups.
I don't know. I think in that instance, you could probably get away with just some random old woman and say it's Vash.
Like what Q turned her into that one time.
Here's another good one. Okay, so if you're doing like a holo program, you could have it say the person who wrote this holo program had actors play the role of the canon characters, so that's why they look different.
Yeah, and you can actually break a little bit of the fourth wall there. It's like they didn't have the license, but this is an unauthorized biography, you could say.
And you go through at the very beginning, and starring Joe Smith as Captain Kirk.
I just thought of a question. What do Cardassian arms look like in the TV series?
They usually have sleeves.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at the ESD Bart or Taylor, and he doesn't have sleeves.
Yeah, I don't think they were ever depicted with anything in particular.
I think what Cryptic used on that one was the alien chest that you can see on some of the Ryza, and they just colored it same color.
Oh, the Revan chest?
Yeah. So it's not specific to the it's not specific to the
it's got some
Cardassians,
texturing.
But
yes, quite a lot of texturing actually.
Yeah, it's the Revan.
Now, is that something we can do in the Foundry? Can we do, if we got...
I can.
We have, sleeveless shirts. Can we put a Riemann chest texture on anything?
No.
I can. Again, I don't know that Duncan can.
No, I can't. I wouldn't be able to do that, because the basic customization options like that of changing major species parts would be identical to what it would be in the Alien Tailor, and we can't do that. If we got the options in the Alien Tailor, that would immediately carry... Well, I think that would carry over to some of the Foundry stuff, because we used to have things like the Nikul head texture, which then we lost because Cryptic took it away, and I I've been crying about that ever since.
Or the Suliban.
Well, the cool worked. That's the thing.
No. Well, okay, the Suliban never made it to the live server. That's right.
Yes.
Legacy of Romulus beta testing that you could put Suliban textures when you were on the Tribble server.
Yeah,
but never on the live server.
Nuku'el, it was a leak, so it came up before the Nuku'el were officially announced. Cryptic, like a month later, nixed it, but then it nixed it for the Foundry, and they never brought it back. So that was my whole thing. It's like, we know about the Nuku'el now. Can we have it back? It was awesome, and it worked perfectly fine. There was no major clipping issues, and it was great. You could do so many cool things with it.
Well, the way I understand it, that the Suliban, I think the Suliban one was apparently the result of them. Well, the rumor has it that they were actually at one point in time considering making the Suliban a playable race. Because especially because you actually go to that Suliban space station really, really early in the new Romulus story. Mm-hmm. One idea some people had is that when Cryptic was originally writing it, the idea that they'd come up with was for you to go there and pick up a Suliban bridge officer.
Mm-hmm.
Just guess, but
I was telling you guys before the show that if they had, if I was able to make a good-looking Suliban captain, I would have bought the Suliban ship.
Yeah.
So see, there, Cryptic, you guys worked yourself out of a sale right there.
To be honest, the Suliban ship is actually a really nice one.
Oh yeah, it's a great-looking ship and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't want to fly one unless I could make a Suliban character.
Yeah. So kind of getting back to the. I was just going to say, getting back to the discussion we were having. Just making that last point that if you sort of have an incident where your captain becomes like your canon character becomes some type of mutated monster, that's another way of doing it too. You got to make the mission really about that, but it's a possibility.
That could be kind of funny.
And that would be basically how far I would go to feel comfortable using a canon character myself. I wouldn't try just changing within the same ethnicity, changing features like that, because it's always debatable. Changing ethnicity, then it's like, okay, that's a new character, and then changing gender, same thing. So it's like, it's that space where a canon character makes sense, and then you're seeing their face. There are very limited options for how to do that well.
So here's the other side of this kind of thing. Instead of using Star Trek canon characters, you could always use Star Trek Online canon characters.
Oh, and that's definitely, that's a great thing.
Yeah. Admiral Quinn, or,
I'm going to be sending over a screenshot.
Captain Maroney, or...
I'm sending over a screenshot, because I've got 2 coming up.
Commander Jarok. Actually, we've put Commander Jarok. She's quite elderly now, but she's still the captain of the Romulan flagship for the 26th century.
Sending over 2.
Well, one of the interesting things is that Tiaru Jarok is the daughter of a canon character, but not actually, someone you ever saw in the TV series. Yeah. Aladar Jarok talked about how he had a daughter, but you never saw her.
And I was thinking about using Gul Dukat's son in a mission.
Not Torres Yal?
No, the one that he mentions who was turning 11 in the episode Defiant.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was missing his birthday. So I was going to bring him in as a leader among the modern day Cardassians.
So just note for Green Dragoon, I did send a couple of screenshots over in
Skype. Got those right. Just bringing those up right now.
Okay. But yeah,
so
especially with Star Trek Online too, it adds a lot
yeah.
It adds a lot, I think, to Star Trek Online to be able to do that, because it's basically us writing within the same series. Whereas with canon characters, it's within the same universe, but I think it's more of a stretch. So anyway, the 2 I sent over are upcoming Starfleet security mission. I've built custom Admiral Quinn in his bath attire, and then I've also got Captain Taggart, who I'm bringing back.
So wait, what is that chess piece there?
For Quinn?
Quinn, yeah.
It's Vedic.
Yeah, it's Vedic. Yeah. Or there's also a variant.
So I'm thinking this is like, Roman Emperor Admiral Quinn here.
It's just basically
It's a
I
toga.
kind of wanted him to do I wanted short shorts, but that wasn't an option. So he's wrapped it's him like with a bath towel wrapped around him basically. So
Do we still have the fur girdle?
Oh, we do still have that, but that would be
Oh,
funnier.
The Tarian one.
Yeah.
I want to make it look like Quinn is just sort of you've caught him at an odd moment,
Okay.
and the odd moment is that
Fur
Takes
girdle on
up
the
out of the
top.
shower.
Fur girdle on the top. Scant on the bottom. If we can get that in the Foundry.
oh
Which
yeah,
that do remind me. This coming week, I believe, is when we're going to be getting the scant and the new shuttle.
28th is the anniversary, so
Yeah.
players should make sure that you can get online at least on that day. But like the
Well, he did say that it would be not just a 1-day thing.
yeah, I was just saying
I think it's going to be probably a weekend thing.
Yeah, just to make sure you get it then.
28th being Thursday.
Yeah.
For the record.
So after that, the likely
Don't want to miss it.
that day. Yeah. So anyway, though, yeah, just with the custom characters here, I get a lot more options. I can, just build out the Star Trek universe in a fun way. That I could bring in, the characters in the series, but because they're kind of just not involved in the same way. For me, it always feels good bringing in Star Trek Online characters because, again, it just does feel like we're doing something a lot more constructive with the format.
They've established a universe here with its own characters, and we can build within that.
Yeah, and they're immediately
connect to
involved too. It's like there's no gaps you have to cross. I mean, we've seen them interacting in this universe, and you just bring them in. It's like boom, they're immediately involved in the setting. With a lot of canon characters, we don't necessarily have that same continuity. I mean, there's a little bit of a gap. I mean, if they're mentioned, even if they're mentioned in the Path to 2409. So, anyway, though, yeah. So that's what I was kind of coming up with, and Taggart too is that's going to be a fun one to work with.
So, I think that's very good advice to authors that we've come up with there. So, I think we'll end it there for the evening.
Wait, one more thing.
One more thing.
Star rating on the mission I was reviewing.
Yes.
this time. Definitely give it a 4-star. It's verging on 5-star with the technical build. It's just for me, the storytelling didn't quite click. So it's a good mission. Definitely recommend, especially for TOS characters. So that was Son of Izar by Helix Fungus. So highly recommended. It's very interesting at the very least.
All right. Well, Dragoon, if you want to put up our contact info.
Okay. We can be reached by email at foundryroundtable@live.com. We are also on Twitter at FoundryRoundtab. Drogyn can be reached at Drogyn1701. Duncan can be reached at Gorgon_SSF. Mark can be reached at Markhawkman. I, of course, can be reached at Greendragoon.
All right. Well, we will say goodnight. And once again, yay, Discovery. Super exciting. Finally have a concurrently running TV show with Stowe and with our show as well. So
yes.
Super exciting. So we'll see how this all turns out. Mm-hmm. But for now, we will say goodnight.
Good night.
Night.